Okay, so here we've got the front, the fore of the boat. We're in the forepeak here. Instead, we've got 100 feet of G4 high test chain. I believe it's 7/16 size. We've got a lot of line that came with the boat in various sizes. I think I've got 4 pieces of 100-foot lengths of 1/2-inch 3-strand, which is nice. Unfortunately, it's all 100-foot lengths. It's not a continuous length. And then I've got some older pieces in there that are even bigger, 5/8 inch, 7/8 inch rather, and then some other various sizes of 3-strand and nylon. But currently I have the anchor connected directly to the chain, shackled to the chain, and then another 100 feet of rode at the end of the chain that I spliced together. So I've got 200 feet of anchor rode currently, which for the local area is, and I'm just in a river, so it's plenty. One of the things I want to do is I want to put a board up over this, and I have some ideas watching some other videos that other people have done it, of how to close that up. It's such a huge amount of space. It's kind of a waste, I think, but it's so far forward in the boat, you really don't want to utilize it for anything heavy. So I don't know if the lines are going to stay or go, or I'll use it for sail storage, which would be pretty good, although not terribly convenient, and we'll see. Here's a location to store the boat's galley tabletop. It slides in there, and then you've got a sliding bolt over this way to secure it. And this needs to be replaced, but it seems to work well, other than taking up a lot of space. You know, it's at least a place that I can put it that doesn't get in the way when I'm using the boat. A couple of shelves. There's a shelf on the port and starboard side of the boat. The boat did come with these cushions that seem to be, they're 5 or 6 inches. They're pretty nice if old and they've been in the boat for a while, so they have a bit of a smell, but it's that old boat smell that we all seek and we all just love so much. And a couple, I've got a couple of oars up this way for the dinghy that came with the boat, and I also have a couple of boat hooks which came with the boat, which is pretty cool. Yeah. If you look underneath these in the V-berth, we've got a little bit of storage underneath. It's just strangely set up. There's not a lot of storage. Beneath here, or up here rather, is the water tank. And then you've got this storage area, but it's so small, I'm not sure. It goes back, I mean, it'll go back all the way, but there's no way to, you've got this drawer. Sorry, let me put this back. So you've got that hatch up there, which is all well and good. And then, so the hatch is up this way, and then you've got this drawer back here. One drawer, and then a single opening lid. And I just don't think I don't think drawers are a very good use of space. I think they could be very handy for accessing important materials, but I just don't think it's you know, in this particular case, I think that this whole area could be used much more beneficially than it is now. I think under here is nothing. There's no access. I believe this is part of the water tank, but I really don't know. I don't know what's in there, to tell you the truth, and I kind of like to find out. So we'll see about that, because right now it just seems like it's dead space, which really in a boat this size should not be. Should not be wasted, I should say. On the port side, we have the same access hatch, and then under the hatch, you've got the access lid to the water tank, and that's all well and good. But you see that well, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's recessed. It's in a terrible location. It probably just needs to be redone. I just don't know if I'm gonna bite the bullet to do that or not. So, lots of things that are happening up here. They've got this grate up here, and behind it some insulation, which is kind of nice, but there's been water intrusion, and some of these pieces now are rotten. This one down here is rotten. This one's probably starting to rot, and it's just not a good look anyways, so figure out what's going on there. I got a couple of opening port lights. This one over here on the starboard side leaked. I don't know if I fixed that or not. I put a new gasket in there, but it was leaking a little bit again. So I don't know what's going on with that. I've got to look at that. Okay, if we head back here, we've got a little locker space. It would probably be a good hanging locker. It's not set up that way right now, but I'm going to transform it likely into a hanging locker plus storage along the back the way it is right now. And a little shelf up top with a non-opening deadlight. And of course the obligatory spiders and such, which are always present here. Here's the mast step, the mast support beam. And you see it kind of sags a little bit right here. These boats had a problem with their support beams. They were wood originally. This one still is wood, but it's also been sandwiched in two heavy plates, two thick plates of aluminum. So that should definitely help out. And then this is the head area. The head I took out. That's a separate video that I put in. Here's the galley table I mentioned. And then we've got some storage space back here, with just little bits and pieces of wood and such. I'm not sure how I'm going to manage the head area. I've got to rebuild it. Here is an issue that the rigger I called out. Rigger Ian Weedman came out in the local Portland, Oregon area, and he looked over things in terms of the mast and the rigging and such, and said, okay, well, this all looks good, but his biggest concern was this post. And I've been over this, I know, but this post isn't actually hitting the ground anywhere. And so it really is not supporting the mast at all. The one on the starboard side seems to be okay, still solid, but you see this is moving around. And the bottom of this bulkhead is questionable. So that will likely be replaced. I'm going to redo the floor. Let me show you what's going on here with the cockpit sole. So here's the general status of the cockpit sole. You see how rotten it is. The whole boat was filled with water, quite deep, and nothing was done with it, unfortunately. So while I will rebuild it, it's gonna wait until I take the mast down and I can pull these bulkheads out, and then I'll start on the floor. So that'll be in about a month or so later this year, the end of the summer this year. I'll do that. But for the time being, I just have these pieces of cheap plywood to cover over them. The front of the cabin sole is no better. And looking back, I removed a bunch of things. There was here there was an old radar display. The old VHF was sitting here. There was a diesel heater that was not connected, but it was actually installed here. I removed all that stuff. I'm going to redo the electrical. These electrical boxes are going to be completely redone eventually. I won't put them in a piece of wood like this, etc. But right now the fuse boxes do work. But I did disconnect all of the mast wiring, so those things. So that's not in place. Let's see. Okay. And it came with a little car stereo. Fine, no big deal. The port side settee is completely gone. Again, I know we've been through this, but I just want to put it all together. Completely rotted. There's the old fiberglass tabs that are still there, and it's holding some pieces of wood there still. but now it's just a dumping ground for my trash and for miscellaneous tools and such. And across both sides, both port and starboard, you've got these storage areas up along just underneath the cabin top. And I took all the doors off. The door hardware was pretty much rotten everywhere. And I'm going to reface these pieces and probably put the doors right back with new hardware. But right now, this side at least, the port side, is terribly... okay, let's get that out of the way. The port side is terribly... There was a lot of here. The port side is kind of messed up. There was a lot of spillage of old paint, Cetal, and other things that just gathered up here. And so I'll probably have to go ahead and cut this out, take this facade off, cut that out, and replace it, and like that. But it works. It's just filthy right now. Also on both sides, we have this little area right here behind the settees, and you can only get to them through this tiny little 4.5 inch gap, whatever this 5 inch gap, and they're deep. They go all the way down to the bottom where the settee hits the hull, and you can't get your head in there to see anything. You can. It's hard to reach anything, and they're just not made very accessible. So I'm going to redo that. I'll probably bring this this piece of plywood straight up here and then include an actual door in it of some sort, maybe toward the top. But I need to make it so it's more accessible to get in there, because right now it just isn't. So I'll figure something out here. Like I said, the port side's the same thing. It's a little cleaner, but it's set up the same. Whatever. The port side settee is not quite so bad, but it is rotting out. This is all falling apart up here. I had to reinforce it temporarily, and I put a piece of plywood on here because I was falling through otherwise, and I just needed a place to sleep. The V berth is not a bad place to sleep. It just isn't as comfortable. It's just not as open. This is just a much better place to sleep, so that's what I decided to do. Okay, so looking aft now, we've got the area that the old pressurized alcohol stove used to sit here. It was a gimbaled setup, and I removed it. I was going to try to refurbish it and use it, but they're old, they do flare up, they're not terribly user-friendly, and I think I've decided not to go with that idea. I don't think this area is set up well for use either. The small sink, we've got raw water and fresh water hand pumps right here, which is fine. I've disconnected the raw water, disconnected because I rebuilt it. That works again now, I just haven't installed it. And you got access to the various seacocks back here for the raw water intake, and then of course the sink drain. But again, I think it's just a real poor use of space. So that's gonna be changed. You got an access down here, which is fine. But more space back here. Again, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just kind of a big hole, and it's got a bunch of stuff and electrical wiring that passes through it. Just wasn't managed well. And I like these hatches, these areas back here for food and condiments and flatware, cookware, whatever. Unfortunately, these hinges and the hardware for these hatches are pretty well worn out. You see another place that the spiders just absolutely love. Spiders and the bugs. There are my winch handles right there. So those things will be replaced. That wood is all just kind of nasty. So here's the rear side of that covered up area. Here's where I mentioned those bronze port lights that were in the rear of the aft side of the cabin trunk. And so that's just the fiberglass, but you can see where it was through bolted quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure they used some gnarly adhesive. I'm not sure what it is, but it was very difficult to get off. The port side deadlights. You see here there's some growth from water intrusion, and I think back here this is all, I think that's residue from burning the stove. I don't know, it just seems like there's some sort of soot or something on there. And you see the drips here. This deadlight also drips, and over time you've got these little algae growth here along the sill. So that'll have to be taken care of. And on the port side, again looking aft in the cabin, you've got this large, well, you've got beer, which Georgetown Brewing Company, love the stuff. No, they don't send me beer, but I just tried it for the first time last night, and it was quite good. Nice IPA. Anyways, is the large ice box, which is cool, but all this wood here is rotten, or partially rotten anyways. And so this is going to have to come, and while this is a nice big ice box, it's probably too big, and it's so old now, it's starting to just fall apart. This is all just falling apart here. And you can see behind in the back, it's just rotten. I still have some ice back there. I put some ice in there. Oh, my M&M stash. But back here is all rotten because there was some water intrusion. Probably from that access panel in the cockpit. Comes right through here. If I can. Yeah, so that's the access panel right there. And so all this is just rotten back there. It's just really too bad. Yeah, I should do it this way. So it's all just rotten back there, as you can see. This is all just, I'm gonna have to redo that, and I'm probably just gonna gut this entirely and rebuild it in a way that I want to. Right now I kind of want a gimbaled stove oven combination, and it's not gonna fit along there. It'd have to stick out a little bit, so I think I might put it right here and just chop this settee down, so I have room for a range, possibly another fridge station right there / navigation station, and then I'll keep probably my sink, and I'll develop that storage better. The sink over here, because I've already got a seacock for the sink drain and for the raw water inlet, so that'll probably stay like that. Alright, so for the engine access, we've got this plate that didn't ever really sit where it should. I'm not sure what was going on with that, but they didn't like finish it. And then we've got this, the companionway steps come out. And we've got the old beast. And again, in earlier videos, you see me messing with this old Buick 10. It's 10 horsepower. It's a monster. It's not going to stay. I'm simply going to pull it out. I don't want it in the boat anymore. I'm going to repower the boat with likely a Beta Marine 16, which will be actually 100 pounds less than this single cylinder Buick 10 horsepower. It still runs. This engine does still run, but the all of the feet are now gone. You see the flywheel is more or less rubbing against the support pieces. The support pieces are kind of falling apart. Anyways, I've been through this. Doesn't matter. I just am gonna get rid of it. This engine's from the 70s, I believe, if not the late 60s. The parts are very hard to come by if you can find them at all. And anyways, those are all the reasons I've got here. Further, you can see now it's in the wrong position, but you see this watermark. You see this mark right here. You've got nice red, and then it gets dark. Well, if you just spin this a little bit so this was straight, you notice that the water in this boat was probably up to about here on the flywheel, right at the bottom of that internal pulley area. So you understand now why all this wood has rotten away. This is all just kind of gone now. It's all just nasty. Just been sitting in nasty water for a long time. And so when I pull that out, that's when I'll start doing all this interior. Take care of all that, and I'll repower that. So let's see, I guess the last thing then is just this old bilge pump alarm, which I was gonna take out here very recently, but I didn't. There is a bilge pump down here in the bilge below the engine, and there is still some water and oil and nastiness down there. The bilge pump is probably just gone as shot. But once I pull that engine out, I can have access down there, and I'll take care of that. And from a friend here locally, I realized that I should put a pan, and the oil and such from the engine will not fall into the bilge. The oil will just fill into this pan right here, and I can access that and take care of business that way, which I really like. So, okay, so I guess that's pretty much it. That's the rundown of this boat. Her hull is sound. It seems solid. It's not leaking. I've taken it out, as you've seen. There's still a ton of work to do, but that's okay. Like I like the idea of getting involved and touching all the components of this boat and making sure that I believe and I have confidence in the systems of the boat and that they're done properly and such. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of money. But the time and money, because I'm still gainfully employed, will come, and so I look forward to the challenge. There'll be bumps in the road, especially when I'm trying to repower and things like that. I mean, expensive items, but those dominoes will fall, and we'll get this thing up and running. And eventually, the idea is to take this fine boat offshore. Hey, and thanks for watching. If you liked the video and you'd like to see more, I'd really like the encouragement, the feedback. Please leave a comment, and thanks again.